Yeah, we played a very good football team, South Carolina State, and I think that our youth really showed up this week, not in experience, but more so in strength. I thought they were a much stronger team than we were, and they beat us up front and on both sides of the ball, and we couldn't really get our run game going, and that really hurt us. So that killed some drives. But I take my hat off to Coach Buddy Pugh. They have a good football team down there in South Carolina State, and you just have to be able to win up front and in the trenches, and I didn't think we did a good job of that this past weekend.
First obvious question, this is going to be your first A&T NCCU rivalry week, as the head coach of whatnot. Right. I mean, how are you approaching this? Like, what's your mindset right now going into the final game of the season against the arch rival?
We'll treat it, for the most part like a regular game, but we know it's going to be, the emotion's going to be running high. It's a rivalry game regardless of the records. Both teams are probably, I'm sure they're going to give their best effort. It's going to be a physical game out there. And I think, one thing that I talked to the team about on Sunday was, it's going to be about controlling our emotions. How hard can we play? How fast can we play? But at the same time, we have to be able to control our emotions. So it's going to be a physical football game. I'm excited, and I'm sure my guys are excited as well.
Last year after they played A&T, one of the seniors said he felt like the younger players kind of didn't anticipate how big of a game it would be. And the team is even younger this year. How do you kind of prepare them for the intensity of this rivalry on Saturday?
I can't prepare them for that. They'll obviously, they'll feel it when they get there, and we'll talk about it with them and everything else like that. But I think, once the ball snapped, you don't worry about. I'm not going to play harder because there's 35,000 people in stands, or whether there's 5,000 people in stands. You throw all that stuff out the window. You're going to play the game as hard as you can because I'm a football player and that's what I do. So, I'm not going to say, I'm going to make this play because we're playing A&T, and it doesn't work like that. You have to prepare to play at your best, and you have to stay focused and level-headed. But it is a very intense rivalry, and I'll be talking to these young men throughout the week about the game and the importance of the game.
I know you don't like to talk about your playing days too much when looking in the past, but do you have any specific memories from your playing days in this rivalry, the intensity and anything that stands out in your mind when you played?
Back when I played, we played at Carter Finley over at NC State's field, and it probably averaged 50,000 people, back then when I was playing. And the first play I got in the game, we were backed up and I was punting that year, and I had to punt from out the end zone, and from like the -5 or something like that. And that was my first ever play against A&T. First college football play, period. But, it was a great rivalry, physical, and, they always had some big guys that could run.
Obviously, Coach Washington is their coach, and you played for him here. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you guys haven't talked much throughout the season, but what are some things you kind of learned from him when you were playing that you borrowed and took to your coaching career?
When you're green, you grow. When you think you're right, you start to decay. And Coach is a really good guy. He's a player's coach, and he really cared about his players. And, after you graduate, we kept in touch, and he always wanted the best for me. And that's what I really appreciated, and that's kind of like the biggest thing I took out of it. And that's why, I talk to my players about, family, and I care about them more than just football players. I want to see them grow up, graduate, and have a family. And, a lot of my former players call and keep in touch with me now. And, that's something I really cherish.
Coach, what is it going to take to get, maybe just talking like, big picture here, to get Central, Central's on a 2-game losing streak against A&T, to get this back to a rivalry that it used to be?
I think it's still a rivalry. We are on a 2-game losing streak, but before that, I think Central ran off three, I believe it was 3 wins in a row. So, it's back and forth. But the bottom line, we're going to finish the season off this week, and then in the future it comes down to recruiting. And that's what, has to, a lot of it has to do with as far as recruiting from top to bottom. You have to have, great players. And I think we have really good players in our program now. But we just need to keep recruiting and bring some more guys in here.
Being a Virginia guy, when you got here as a student athlete, when did you realize just how important this rivalry was to this state, to this university?
Probably when I got on campus. But, I had ties. My parents both went to school here, so they talked about it beforehand. But, back then it was the first game of the season. So all camp you were preparing for the the A&T game. So as soon as you got here on campus, we were talking about that game. Now with it being the end of the season, you don't talk about it really until the last week. So we haven't discussed A&T until Sunday, and it was the first time we had talked about A&T all year. But now our sights are focused on them.
It's not unheard of for programs to begin their season with a conference opponent. Is that something maybe that you would like to see happen with this rivalry down the road, especially with the history that you had with it when you just mentioned about it being about 50,000 people at Carter Finley? Do you think that could maybe bring more luster to this program and more spotlight if you guys move it to the beginning of the season again?
Well, I'm going to tell you, first of all, I love the fact they moved it back on campus because, both universities get to benefit financially from that. Then secondly, I like it at the end of the year. I like it at the end of the year because now, a lot of times you're playing with so much. And, aside from it being a rivalry game, unfortunately, we don't have the option of going to the Celebration Bowl, but, A&T's fighting to try to get to the bowl game. And for, it's just a lot at stake right now. And, I really like that it's end of the year. You have rivalry week amongst all the schools in college football, and I like it at the end of the year.
You were eliminated last week, I think. So what is it like preparing this week, knowing that this is it?
Well, another opportunity, regardless. And, luckily we're not, but if you were 0-10, 0-11, if you have another week to play, you have another opportunity to play football. So, our guys are, we're disappointed. I'm disappointed that we, lost last week and got knocked out of the race. But, at the same time, we had to finish the schedule. And we have a big opponent and a lot to play for. And again, these seniors have one more game. Many of them, this will be the last time they ever put a helmet on. So, we had to finish up strong. And, nobody has tapped out or given up on the season by any stretch. And our guys came to work Sunday, and, we'll go out and practice today and work to win this game this weekend.
When you coached there at A&T, did it feel kind of weird just when you switched sides, I guess, and was it a big adjustment to kind of when this game was played, the Eagle Aggie Classic?
Yeah, it was definitely different, being Kelly Riddick on the visitor sideline and different view. And again, Central won those games when I was there, and it was a dogfight. It was a dogfight. But I'd much rather have on the maroon and gray. I will tell you that.
You kind of mentioned this after the game on Saturday, that this game coming up, it's a springboard to the off season and to spring football, winter workouts. How big is it to end on a high note to kind of carry that momentum into those winter workouts into spring ball and hitting the recruiting trail? Huge.
It's huge. This is a big game for us. Probably for them too. But as far as in-state recruiting, we're fighting for some of the same guys, and this has a lot to do with it. And bragging rights. Alum on both sides. And I know alumni here, they definitely want this football game. And our guys are hungry for the win, and they're still working. And again, our attitudes are great, and the guys will continue to work. And us winning this football game, could carry us into the spring on a high note, and that would be big for the program.
When you first got the job in December, can you remember how long it was before the first alumni mentioned the A&T game to you?
Well, it was there were several games they mentioned, but they definitely want this game, and of course, me being an alum, I want it more than they do, and we're gonna work our butts off this week to make sure that happens.
Coach, if you could, Davius Richard is with us. Could you just talk about him and the year that he's had and what he's meant to the program?
Pee-wee, great young man, great student, great person. I can't say speak enough about him. And he came in, I think he was probably fourth on the depth chart or somewhere down there. And, he never complained, never pouted. He just continued to come to work and work hard. And I love his work ethic. I love his attitude. He kept fighting, and all of a sudden, he ends up in the starting role and started the majority of the season. And, his talent that he has, his God-given ability is something. And the way he can throw the football and his decision-making, he's going to be a special one. And I think he's shown that already, being, I think, one of 3 quarterbacks in Central history, freshman, thrown for over 2,000 yards. So, he still has some stuff to work on. But the type young man he is, he's going to improve. And like we say, he's green. So when you're green, you grow. And he's a great young man and somebody that we want leading our program.
I do have one more question. You talk about obviously it's going to be an emotional game from the time they get off the bus, and you want to control those emotions. But once the ball is kicked off, they'll still play with a little emotion. At what point does that usually kind of go away and it just goes back down to X's and O's and executing?
You need to be focused. No. Well, you need to be focused. I don't think that emotional will ever, really come down. It's going to be an emotional game from start to finish, and there's going to be a lot of adrenaline pumping and everything else. But when I say control those emotions and staying focused, it's okay to play with a chip on your shoulder and have a little bit that those butterflies in your stomach. But at the same time, you have to focus on those X's and O's and carry out your assignment. You can't get so caught up into the fans and the band and the wave and everything else that you're not focused on, what you're supposed to be doing.
To start with, this year has been pretty crazy because a lot of people don't think about coming into college and starting as a true freshman, so that's a big part to take under. But overall, it's been a good year. Built a lot of friendships, found like 4 or 5 new best friends on camp, built a real strong relationship with my team. We're still building, so it's been very good.
Is it still all coming? Well, with one game remaining, is it all still kind of fast for you, or did it slow down for you about 2 or 3 games back?
Yeah, it's slowed down about 2 or 3 games back. I'm playing like it's normal, like I've been playing in high school, so it pretty did slow down. So everything's kind of normal now.
What's the biggest adjustment you got to make?
The biggest adjustment was the people who I was throwing to and the people who was blocking for me. That's a big transition where you're coming from like 4 receivers you grew up with your whole life, and then coming to 4 new receivers, learning their play style, how they play, how they catch the ball, and how they run their route. So that was a big adjustment to me.
Not being from here, but kind of hearing about it, though. How much do you want to – obviously you want to win the game, but how much do you want to play for your seniors and the guys from the in-state to kind of give them bragging rights as they go out and end their careers?
It's just like high school when it's like basically the same thing. At the end of the year, we had our own rivalry against the rival team. So it's basically the same thing. And like for the seniors, it's big bragging rights to leave graduating knowing that your senior year you won the game. So I'm going out there with 110% for my team.
When you played in the rivalry game back in Florida in your high school, what were the biggest crowds you played in front of?
The biggest crowd probably what we'll see Saturday, because the rivalry back down in Florida was pretty intense. Like the whole state knew about it, so people come from upstate and downstate just to come to that game.
How do you think that will help you with the experience you gain from playing in big games like that on the high school level, and you being a freshman here and getting ready for arguably the biggest game of the year? How will that experience help you this Saturday?
It will help me by like crowd control, because it's going to be pretty noisy with the band playing, the fans screaming, people on the sideline trying to coach. So playing in that game back in Florida already got me accustomed to it, so I can block out all the noise and just focus on the game.
I'm going to assume when it came to Miami and Florida State, you rooted for the Hurricanes.
No.
Florida State guy?
No. I never rooted for a Florida team.
Okay.
Even my NFL team, I go for the Patriots, the New England Patriots, and I always liked the Ohio State Buckeyes because my big brother went for them.
Okay. But that was the big intense rivalry in Florida, obviously.
Not to me.
Okay.
To me, the biggest rivalry other than in my high school was the kickoff classic against Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman.
But this is your first rivalry you can be a part of. You kind of watch those thinking like, okay, I want to play in a big game, big intense college rivalry game like that one day.
Yeah, definitely feels good to be a part of one this time, especially as a freshman. So I'm going to give it all my all.
Even though you've never played in this rivalry, you were talking earlier about all of the hype that you are already feeling and seeing. You were actually hearing about it while you were in Florida, which is kind of crazy to me or whatnot. But now you're less than a week away from playing that game. Do you already feel like that negative energy, that kind of like hatred that comes, in between like these two programs like this when you guys have to play this year and this is your first time playing in that game? Do you already feel that animosity because they are your rival?
I look at every team the same, so the feelings I have against them I already had against all the other teams that we play. So all the hatred and stuff, that's in between the whistle. So I never hate the team. They're a good program, but in between the whistle, I don't know them. After the whistle, after the game hit 0-0-0-0, we can be like cool enough. But in between the whistle, I don't know them. They're my enemies, so I'm going to do everything I can to beat them.
Do you know what's at stake for A&T in this game?
Yes. I'm pretty sure it's the who's goes to the Celebration Bowl, depending on this game. So like even like teams from like Bethune's, they know they're in the race. One of my homeboys from that school hit me up talking about, oh, I need you to do good this week because, you know, we're trying to get to Celebration Bowl and stuff like that. So, yeah, I really do know. So I'm just going to go out there and do me.
How satisfying would it be to end this season, you know, by spoiling their season and ending theirs at the same time? How satisfying would that be?
It'll be real satisfying because of all the talk that you hear about the rivalry. So coming in as a freshman and be able to bring back the trophy home to Durham, it'll be real satisfying.
Did you hear any of that from the South Carolina State players after the game last week? Like maybe y'all shaking hands, like, hey, go get it done next week. We need y'all's help.
A little bit, not too much. They were just good, a good game, well fought, do good next week. It was like a couple people, but they were worrying about their team next week, who they play.
Any other students on campus have been talking to you about this game, just in general? You know, go get those guys or whatever.
Yeah, pretty sure every football player here is that walking around campus, you're walking just mind your business, listening to music, somebody come up tap you, hey man, come on, we got to do this next week. I'm gonna need you to do this, do that. I'm gonna need you to do anything you can to beat this team. So I'm pretty sure all football players already heard it. Yeah, of course I heard it. Earlier today, somebody came up to me. I was walking from class, going to the cafeteria. Somebody walked up to me like, "Oh, you ready for this game Saturday?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready." Then they was talking, "Oh yeah, we need you to do this, we need you to do that. We gotta do everything we can to get them up out of here." So yeah, I heard it.
How would you say your freshman year is gone?
It's going good, but it's not the way that I wanted it to go. Depending on the record, I would been more satisfied if we went undefeated when I started. So I like the way it went, but it always could have gone better. So we always got stuff to build on.
You know, Coach was talking about how you were fourth on the depth chart, and all of a sudden there you are, you know, playing and starting and everything. How do you square all that in your mind, how all that came about and everything?
It's pretty crazy because my junior year in high school, I went through the same thing. Coming in from my 10th grade during the summer, I was playing another sport, so I would miss practice a lot. So I ended up falling down third string into the depth chart. And then during my junior year, I was always complaining, oh, they're not playing me. Need to get reps and stuff. Until I finally sat down and talked to my coach, like, why you not playing me? Like, what? And then he told me that he felt that I was insecure about my playing abilities and that he needed to see something in me to better forth my effort. So then, halfway through the junior season, I actually did the same thing. I actually started paying attention like more, started getting more, studying my playbook, then I ended up rising it to the top. So that's basically coming in was the same thing. I never like doubted myself because I was in fourth because I know I was a newcomer and they already established themselves on the football team. So I just did all the things that I already did, pay attention to my playbook, make sure I produce in practice, do good, and just stay on top of my stuff, and then the opportunity will come.
I don't want to rush it. I don't want to look past Saturday, but what's one thing you're looking forward to in the offseason of improving on it or getting better at?
It's always stuff to improve on. First and foremost, I would like to improve on like the chemistry in the team because, you know, we're a pretty young team, so we still got a lot of building to do. And getting more with my receivers, like more in depth in their route running so I can understand the way they do their stuff and so it'll better me and throwing the ball. And personally, I can work more on my footwork, like while throwing the ball, because a lot of times my ball will probably sail or it'll go like hit the ground because before it get to the target because of my feet placement. So that's a big thing I'm focused on in this offseason.
Who's the most famous player from Belgrade? Belgrade, I'm sorry.
The answer may vary depending on who you ask because there's so many people came out of that high school that went to the NFL. But to me, the most notable guy that I know is Kevin Benjamin because when I was little, I grew up next to him. Like, it's crazy because you never think about like the people you growing up because I always see him like playing outside in football. I used to play football with him. And you'll never expect him to like have that type of career he have at Florida State and then make it to the NFL. So to me, that's the most notable guy that I know from Florida, Belgrade, Florida.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the NCCU Sports Network.